In this video, we'll give you 6 quarterbacks that you'll want to draft in 2024 fantasy leagues. I'm Jim Coventry, along with Anthony Cervina of RotoWire.
My first quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. He's a quarterback I'm trying to leave a lot of drafts with, and normally you like to wait for the quarterback, but this year we're getting Patrick Mahomes I would say at a little bit of a discount, all things considered. What do I mean by that? Last year, Patrick Mahomes coming off of a bad season for who he is, but they have a brand new core of wide receivers. You got Kelsey coming back on a 2-year deal. He's not retiring, and he's going to be healthy. You have Worthy. You have Hollywood Brown. We don't know what's going on with Rice. Even if he misses time, he'll be back at some point. And I see Patrick Mahomes going back to the player that he was. And who was Patrick Mahomes? Well, last year, quarterback, 10 fantasy points per game. Again, bad year. Every other season, if we go back to Patrick Mahomes since 2018, his worst fantasy finish in fantasy points per game was a QB6 back in 2019. Back in 2022, the quarterback 2 in that category threw 41 touchdowns and 5,250 yards. He now has that arsenal in place to get back on track. Jim, who's your first quarterback?
So look, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals, we have him labeled as injury prone. Understand the ACL injury he suffered at the end of 2022 cost him time in both 2022 and 2023. So it was one injury. In the first 3 seasons, Murray did not miss a lot of time. So I think he's more durable than the fantasy community believes. Now, last year, Murray comes back from that ACL. Now, he did not have a great receiver room. Marquise Brown wasn't a factor from week 13 on because of an injury. Michael Wilson was hurt. Trey McBride was a de facto top receiver. Still, Murray put up between 19.5 and 26 fantasy points in 7 of 8 games. Now, Murray's over a year removed from that ACL. He could go back to being a high-end runner. And think about this receiving trio. Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, again, finished strong, started strong, and McBride. The quarterback has his most versatile group of weapons. And Murray's being drafted as a top 9 quarterback. I think he could finish as a top 4 if this all shakes out. Anthony, who do you like as your second quarterback?
I'm all in on Anthony Richardson. Now, I know we didn't see a lot of Anthony Richardson last year, but the small sample size we've seen, he looks like the real deal. He played in 4 games. In 2 of those games, he exited in the second quarter. In the 2 full games that he played, we saw a QB4 finish that week and a QB2 finish. And week 2 against Houston, one of those aforementioned games where he did exit in the second quarter, he had 17.7 fantasy points. So that's his floor in 2 quarters in one of those matchups. So we know going into his second year, if we get a healthy Anthony Richardson, I think the ceiling is quarterback 1 overall, and we're drafting him at a current ADP of 56.4. Yes, he's a very high-risk player, but I think the reward of Anthony Richardson, again, is overall quarterback 1. I'm taking him over guys like C.J. Stroud, and I like C.J. Stroud. I think the hype's a little bit too much because I think this is a team that's going to run the ball more. But if you look at Richardson, what he has around him in Pittman, they drafted Mitchell. They have Jonathan Taylor, who, oh, by the way, Richardson and Taylor has never played a game together yet. And the offensive line is going to be one of the best in the NFL. Anthony Richardson is one of my all-in quarterbacks in 2024.
So number 2 for me is Lamar Jackson. And I know he's kind of a layup, but he's a safe layup and a high-end layup. Now, last year, Jackson threw for 3,678 yards in 16 games. Now, you remember his MVP season in 2019. He played 1 fewer game, but like 550 less yards. So this was the best passing version of Jackson we saw. And remember, Todd Monken was installing the offense. Lamar Jackson's best numbers came after the week 12 bye. So he was learning the offense. And this was without Mark Andrews. Now, in terms of Jackson, he had 4 multi-touchdown passing games through week 12. In his last 6 games, he had 4 more multi-touchdown games. So again, learning the offense. And then in terms of 300-yard games, 2 of his 3 big yardage games, those came in the last 4. So we see things turning. Mark Andrews starts the season healthy. We're not sure if Devontae Walker is going to chip in. Really needs a deep threat there. The team's talking up Bateman. We'll see. But still, Jackson's 24 passing touchdowns were the 3rd most of his career. There is real ability for that to go higher. And of course, the running ability, right? Jackson had at least 35 yards in all but 2 games. And 9 times, including the playoffs, he went over 50 yards. So you always have that going for you. Now, Derrick Henry's involved. Look, Henry's going to raise the ceiling of the entire offense. Everybody's going to eat more because Henry's there. So that just gives Jackson more opportunities for touchdowns. Again, quarterback 4 in most drafts. You get what you pay for. You may not get more, but you probably won't get less. Anthony, who's your third quarterback?
Kirk Cousins is another quarterback I'm trying to leave drafts with. And if you're somebody who wants to wait on quarterback, I don't think there's a better option sitting out there at the current ADP of 125.3 than Kirk Cousins. I love this Atlanta Falcons offense. I think they have all the pieces in place to be a juggernaut and take a monstrous step forward in 2024. When you look at Zach Robinson coming over, the skill position players. They spent high draft capital on Bijan and Pitts and Drake London. They also brought over Darnell Mooney and Rondale Moore. So Kirk Cousins has a full arsenal of weapons at his disposal. And we know what we're going to get out of Kirk Cousins, right? Yep. He's a high floor player. I don't know if he has what it takes to pop as a top 5 to 8 quarterback. He really brings nothing in the rushing game unless you get lucky and he sneaks one in. But he is a guy that even last year, only in 8 games, he averaged 19.3 fantasy points per game. If you look at his recent years from 2020 on, he's been a quarterback 12 or better. So he's been a QB1 in fantasy points per game. And he has the weapons in place. It's not like he's going to a team and there's some question marks from offensive line to wide receivers, the tight end and running back. It's all there. And Kirk Cousins is in another great situation to return immense value on his ADP.
My last quarterback is Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Prescott had similar seasons in 2021 and 2023. Each of those years, about 4,500 yards and 36 touchdowns. Those are bankable numbers. Now, look, 2022 was terrible. It was one of those seasons. Throw it out. It's not indicative of his career. Now, last year we learned a lot about Dallas during the Week 6 bye. They couldn't run the football. Through those first 5 games, Prescott had 6 touchdowns, didn't even hit 275 yards. But after the bye, they came out pass heavy. And Prescott had at least 29 fantasy points in 7 of his last 12 games, includes the playoff game there. Now, Dallas, look, they're still not going to be able to run the ball. Pollard's gone. Ezekiel Elliott, kind of long in the tooth. He's going to be in there. They have to throw again. Prescott could throw the most passes in the league. You got CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson. We're hopeful Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert can step up a bit more, but even if not, you're going to get that high-end version of Prescott in 2024. He goes around quarterback 7, so Dak Prescott could outproduce that ADP by a couple spots. If you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial with no credit card needed. Go to rotowire.com/Jim to see all of our content.